So we've been wondering for a while if Sony would continue to do their multi-platform push they've sort of played around with here and there. I mean, we saw Lego Horizon that went to the Switch. We've seen now Helldivers 2 get announced for the Xbox, and naturally them moving many titles to PC. Yes, some years later, but still at times that window from console release to PC release is getting smaller and smaller, and in some cases with live service games, it's just day and date right then and there. But now something else has happened. A job listing. And in the description, it sounds like Sony has a pretty big focus and plan around the idea of bringing their PlayStation Studios games to other non-Sony platforms. And that's what we're going to look at here today. So if you guys enjoyed the video, hit the like button, subscribe if you're new. So I want to give a shout out to Push Square, which is where I originally saw this, and they linked over to the job board's listing for this. But let's take a look. This is, you can see over on greenhouse.io. And this is Sony, naturally listing it here, San Mateo, California, saying Senior Director, Multi-Platform and Account Management. So they have a description here as to why you should choose PlayStation. Naturally, it's the best place to play. It's also the best place to work. There you go. Anyway, down here an overview, they have reporting to Vice President Commercial Management as Senior Director of Multi-Platform and Account Management. You'll play a critical leadership role in shaping and executing the global commercial strategy for PlayStation Studios software titles across all digital platforms beyond PlayStation hardware. That's right, beyond PlayStation hardware. That includes Steam, Epic Game Store, Xbox, Nintendo, and mobile. This role is accountable for optimizing title profitability, ensuring cross-functional alignment, and leading a high-performing team focused on multi-platform expansion, mid-range commercial planning, and platform partner management. Now, when I first saw this, I thought, okay, clearly they're doing more and more with the live service push. Like Helldivers 2 is a live service game. Yes, it is going to Xbox, and that caught a lot of people off guard because they figured, well, it's a game you have to pay for, right? It's not a free to play or something where you can make the case, okay, free to play, you just want to get as many people as possible. It's very accessible. Now, Helldivers 2, you have to spend $40 just to get in, and then there's microtransactions on top of that. But there must be data at Sony that says, yeah, this makes sense for us to at least attempt. Or maybe they're trying to gather data by moving one over, and they picked, what's been their real successful live service game at this point. Although they do have MLB The Show and Destiny 2 under Bungie on Xbox, so they have some information as to how things are going there with those titles and sort of how that audience has responded to updates and different things they've done. But here they mention like everything. There's Steam, Epic Game Stores, in the Xbox, Nintendo. Nintendo was one that it's been alluded to quite a bit. I think the Lego Horizon game really had some people go, oh, it's like an aha moment of, maybe Sony would think about moving more and more stuff to the Switch 2 at this time. It's very popular right now, as we're seeing with the sales. And games just go there. If they're higher quality and interesting, people are buying them. And that tends to happen when it's a newer system that's just come out. People are just buying games just to try on their shiny new game system. So, if Sony had something ready to go and they dropped it on there, it would probably do pretty well in the first year or so. Now, they do say under multi-platform strategy leadership that they oversee the out-of-year mid-range commercial strategy for PlayStation Studios titles across all non-PlayStation platforms, driving long-term revenue growth and audience reach. I think that's the real hook here for Sony right now. Yes, they would want to move games over to these platforms like Nintendo, like Xbox, even mobile obviously, but really it's also the idea of reaching people who just have not bought a PlayStation or don't really have interest in buying a PlayStation. And that's the thing. I think with what we're seeing currently, not that the console space itself is getting smaller, although I think when it's all said and done, PlayStation 5 and Xbox Series added together versus Xbox One and PS4, I don't think it's going to reach Xbox One and PS4 combined sales. So yes, in effect, it will have, that market size would have shrunk a bit. Although I think that's mostly on Microsoft's side in terms of fault versus Sony. I think Sony is doing well enough keeping up with the PS4, but they're not blowing away the PS4. So Sony naturally is realizing this. I mean, if we realize it, they do. And yeah, I do think they're going to look and say, well, maybe people right now who are in the younger audience that maybe pick up a Switch 2 or even a Switch 1 at this time, and they'll upgrade to the Switch 2 later. Maybe they could, because we heard this from Sony and Yoshida and stuff, maybe they'll grow into a PlayStation, but we got to get them started somewhere. And one of the best ways to do that is get a game that might not be M-rated, but teen-rated, and move it over to the Switch 2 like the actual Horizon Zero Dawn, not a Lego one. And that's still what I think could happen. It wouldn't surprise me. Also, I mean, Helldivers 2, just if they can get that thing working within reason and how they want it to on the Switch 2, yeah, that probably, I mean, it's pretty clear that most likely would go. I think there's a lot of potential actually for Horizon, and I feel like that one makes a ton of sense to go on Nintendo's platform. You can look at they have a slew of titles and series that they have kind of put in the vault. We just on Click R3 recently, we were talking about Infamous and how if that came back as a remake or remaster, just to kind of reintroduce everyone to that franchise again, since it's been, I mean, I know Second Son was 2014, but that's 11 years ago. It's kind of been on the shelf for a bit to where, yes, you have new generation that just came in. Infamous on the Switch 2 would also make sense. And that, to me, with Sony, and they're also looking at mobile games as phones are becoming very capable. And there's also a wide audience there, too, that, yeah, might be interested to check this stuff out. So it's interesting to see this pop up now after all the speculation that Sony could be attempting this. And they do mention the role is accountable for optimizing title profitability. And so the thing that's always going to be the hang up for Sony with this is how soon is too soon to move a game over? Because it's very clear they still have a serious focus on the PlayStation hardware first and foremost, but they also understand that, I mean, you get to a point where these games have sold through enough to where it wouldn't necessarily hurt the PlayStation console to move it to Nintendo, to Xbox, clearly to PC. They've been doing that like crazy. So having that as a strategy with PC, I think is going to extend to these other platforms. Now, with Xbox, based on their strategy for next generation, it might just be by default. And Sony might realize that and go, you know what, next year, we're just going to start moving stuff to the Xbox console and see what sales we can get before Microsoft decides to merge PC and Xbox, and all our stuff is there anyway, even accessible then through, say, Steam. So maybe Sony just sees the writing on the wall, kind of figures that's their Microsoft strategy, and just starts moving right away. But the Switch 2 is the intriguing one. I don't know when Sony apparently has a handheld in development. There's been so many like references, it feels like, to it. So many things are happening with low-powered states for the PS5, and it feels like they are making that move and developing one. But it also seems like it wouldn't be ready until 2028, maybe. And if that is the case, there is like a 3-year window right now where they can just move stuff over and see what sticks on the Nintendo platform, and what, even in that case for development, what works for them and what the audience would actually buy into. So it's just, this is such an intriguing time right now in the industry, because in a way it does feel like that the three major platform holders aren't in direct competition, even though they kind of are, because it's all about screen time and you're just trying to keep people on your platform. But back in the day, it was just much more one-to-one. Okay, the GameCube's going to attempt to sell, the PlayStation 2 is going to attempt to sell, and the Xbox. And they're all these boxes you put on your TV, and everyone's just trying to get you on to buy that system and then buy the games from them. It wasn't, oh, let's get them to buy in the PlayStation Plus, or let's get them to NSO or any of these other factors that then attach to the system after you buy it. So very different times now. Xbox is kind of going off doing their own thing. Nintendo's been out in left field this whole time, and now Sony is sitting at this crossroads, it feels like, trying to figure out which way to go. And based on this listing, seems like cross-platform and just releasing multi-plat might be the move for select titles. I don't necessarily think you're going to see them announce, say, a brand new, well, I shouldn't say that, because there's this 2D God of War that's out there, and maybe that is multi-platform day one, but like the big 3D one or the third Horizon game, all right, just as an example. I don't think those are going to show up with logos around PlayStation like Nintendo and Xbox and stuff. But at this point, I can't rule out maybe God of War 2018 going to Xbox or Switch too. That would be something to see there. I mean, just in general right now, nothing's off the table. So very interesting times right now. Well, let me know what you guys think about this one down below with this job listing that's now appeared for Sony that just seems to describe the idea of someone being in charge of profitability for multi-platform releases from PlayStation Studios titles across Xbox, Nintendo, Steam, and Epic Game Stores, and mobile. I wonder what they try to put on cell phones. I guess we'll see, apparently. Thanks, guys, for watching, and I'll see you next time.